All right. Well, good morning, and hopefully we're having a good Tuesday, a good start to our Tuesday here. And what I'm going to try to do here is, as we start the class, I'm going to push out a Google poll here about the contributing factors to the outbreak of the First World War. And hopefully this poll launches and you'll see it launch. And you should be able to hopefully find it in activities and be able to select the one that you think is the most contributing factor. So here we go. Let me launch this poll here and let's see if you hopefully you get a notification. If not, someone just tell me in the chat or verbalize if you got it or not. So here we go. All right, I clicked on the launch button. So hopefully it launched out to you.
Yes.
All right. And it might depend on the device that you're logged on, but just quickly take a moment here. The poll is asking you to look at, do you think imperialism, the alliance system, militarism, nationalism, the crisis year, and more specifically the July crisis, which one of them was the most contributing factor? Okay, and those who may have just joined, we are taking a poll here, and so hopefully that poll launched out to you about which was the contributing factor. You might be able to put it also in your activities.
Where is the poll?
Well, the poll should have been launched out to you. There in Google Meet, there might be a little icon, looks like a little triangle, where it's about activities. And if you click on that icon, maybe polls will appear. The poll will appear.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that.
Okay. Okay, again, it might depend on the device that we are using here. So if I exit out of this, you can Google, so we might see this screen here. And so for in a meeting in the top right corner, click activities. Do we see activities in your top right corner?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll try this probably at another time. Not going to stress out on it. So with that, looks like we're having a little struggles with it, and that's fine. You know, that's technology for us. And so there might be a little icon, hopefully with 3 shapes, but it depends on perhaps maybe what version of the Google Meet, if we're in the apps or in the app, or if we're using it from Chrome, what device maybe we're on. Those who did were able to participate in the poll. What device are you using?
Computer.
Just using a computer?
Laptop.
Okay. And I suppose those of us who are not being able to, well, someone said they use an iPad, so. All right, well, we're all over the place here on that one. So I got to do some digging. I love it. I got a task here. All right. So I think ultimately we're just trying to figure out, trying to act like historians to determine what we thought was the number one contributing factor to breaking out this this big event. Okay, I'll take a look at your assignment, and so hopefully you submit that so that I can look at it and see what you think is the contributing factor here. All right, so today we were going to try to take a poll. Looks like a few of them are able to do it. Fantastic. I have a little video clip here that I'll show that kind of launches us into this next phase of the First World War. That will be the total war activity, First World War. So the image that you see on there, that little mug shot, that would be a family member. It would be my great uncle, John Hyder Jr., a 24-year-old American doughboy who is going to go off and serve when the United States enters into the First World War. He had registered when he was 23 for the draft, and that is one thing that we look at when we want to call this a total war, is how we raise our armed forces, and conscription or draft can be one of it. And so my great uncle, John Hyder Jr., would be drafted into the First World War. I think it would probably be kind of an interesting one in that John Hyder Jr. he was bilingual. He could speak English, but also German fairly fluent. So that should be interesting. It should have been. I didn't get a chance to really ask him stories, in that he had passed away before I was born, but I'm sure he maybe had some stories about the front there. All right, I have a video clip here, and it's very well possible that I had showed this video clip last year in History of the Americas, but I think it's a really good video clip here, and it's going to be on the World War I in one word. I think it's always extraordinary when we can think of a person or think of an event, and we can encapsulate it in one word. And so I think as we watch this, think about what word you would use to perhaps maybe describe World War I. All right. So you could put that in the chat. That would be great. One word to describe World War I. All right. Here we go.
If I had to choose one word to describe World War I, it would be cataclysmic.
A single word to describe World War I would be catastrophic.
The audio is like
because nothing
layering
was
over
the same
itself.
once the war was over.
I think the one word that helps to describe World War I is destructive.
Say that one more time, Lane.
The audio is being really weird. Like it's like one word, like it's
It's
going over
echoing.
itself, you know?
Okay.
I think you should mute your mic that you're talking into for now.
Yep, I'm with you. So let me give that a shot.
I would choose the word mistake.
Stupid. That's how I would encapsulate the First World War. World War I did not have to happen. There was no inherent reason. It literally was dumb.
A person during World War I thought they were in a new age, a fascinating modern world, the world that produced the Titanic, aviation, and incredible advances in medicine. It seemed like everything was within grasp right before World War I. And all of these would be smashed on the battlefields of Europe.
from the very beginning of the road to war to everything that comes out of the war and the peace plans is not just one mistake, but a series of mistakes. People had the option to choose peace, and time and again seemed to make the wrong decisions.
It was lack of communication. It was intellectual rigidity. It was a simple falling of dominoes that never needed to fall. And so the children of the Renaissance and the Age of Reason and the Enlightenment ended up massacring themselves in the mud and blood of the trenches.
Not just destructive in terms of what happens to men's bodies on the battlefield, destructive in terms of global politics.
The Russian Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the grievous weakening of the British and French empires. The world that existed in 1918 was remarkably different from the one that existed in 1914.
The whole globe was influenced by this war, and the transformational changes cover a wide range from technology of weapons. You see the first tanks, you see the maturation of artillery guns, machine guns, trench warfare. World War I begins the modern era.
Your mic's still muted.
Yeah, there we go. We got it. We're having a really banner day here, and we'll get through it. Sun's come up, so I'll get through it. So hopefully, again, the sound wasn't that bad. But I think when we look at World War I in one word, destructive, preventable, pointless. You look at we got about 20 million people that in the end are soldier-wise are going to be killed. And World War II is just going to just totally blow that number away. But I think in terms of the manners in which how the war was fought and the reasons for it was fought, all that, I think, the words that you are describing and even the words that some of those historians are using are pretty spot on. I think the one word that I kind of gravitate on when I think of those historians talking is transformational. I mean, I've used that a lot when we look at civil wars. And we had looked at Rwanda and Kosovo, how war is transformational. And this war is. The map of Europe and the globe changes. When we look at technology, it is in constant state of motion in this one, and it is transforming how we are fighting wars and or struggling to transform how we fight wars in terms of how it impacts individuals personally is very transformational. And then we look at effects also make it transformational. Here, in some countries, women are going to gain the right to vote, and a lot of it has to do because of the efforts of World War I. So I think transformational is pretty spot on. However, when I think of that one historian that described it as stupid, I think I would like to probably sit in his class and hear a little bit more of his reasoning behind it, because I'm like, okay, you got my attention now. I'm going to sit there with my Diet Coke and I'm going to listen to what you say. All right. So let's see if we can get something going here in terms of this assignment here. And as we get into this assignment, does anyone else have any follow-up to that little video clip? Because there's a lot of good little nuggets in it. All right, so like I said in my update today, I had opened up the assignment, and the assignment is the total war activity. And so when we look at this World War, and we're going to also look at the Second World War, we want to make a claim here that it's a total war. And in order to call it a total war, there is a criteria, and this is the criteria that you see. Creating a large fighting force through the use of conscription. And so when we think of our own Army of the United States, it probably was quite small when the war was going to begin in 1914. And by the time we get involved, declare war in 1917, it has expanded because of the Selective Service Act of 1916, I want to say 1916, in which my great uncle and one of his brothers will have to sign up for. My grandfather, Adolf Walter Heider, he was only 12 when the war actually started. So creating a large army, and we'll find that the armies in Europe, they're already quite large when the war happens. Using civilians in the war effort, for example, in industry and home defense, so getting us involved in it. Use of weapons, and there's a lot of weapons. Airplanes are going to make an appearance here, and they might have a role in determining the outcome, but there's some pretty big guns and the use of gas in this war. Government control of key aspects of the economy. So in order for this to be a total war, government needs to pull the strings of the economy to make sure the goods and services are all flowing towards the war effort. So that means we at home might have to sacrifice. We might have wheatless Mondays or wheatless Wednesdays, flourless Wednesdays, stuff like that. Government control of the media in order to maintain civilian morale. It's all about propaganda, making sure that we are all thinking in the right direction. Demonize our enemy and stuff like that. And targeting of civilians as well as combatants. In the First World War, we're going to find some examples where civilians are purposefully the target. War does provide an opportunity here for other agendas to be had. All right, so if we remember back to our first unit of study on genocide, specifically about Rwanda and Kosovo, I started off by kind of giving an overview of genocide and the history of it, and it started off with the Armenian genocide. This is the war in which that will occur in. So targeting of civilians. So it may not necessarily just be that example. There could be some other examples as well. All right, so that's all about the criteria for a total war. What do we got to do here? Well, you're going to research and analyze to what extent World War I was a total war. And you can do this with a historical buddy. All right, you can go solo, fly alone, run as one, as a lone wolf, I should say, or run with a historical buddy. And it can be in this section or it can be in the other section as well. I have 2 sections of 20th century this trimester, so you can work with someone in the other hour. You're going to use chapter 3, cross-regional wars, World War I, practice. So those pages 45 to 75 really should be it. Should be it. And so you shouldn't have to go out and GTS it. All right. Unless you want further clarification, but realistically, just stick with what the book has. I know sometimes we think if we go out and GTS it, we're going to find that quick answer. But the activity is designed around our particular IB textbook. All right. And you're going to look at 3 big areas: theaters of war, roles of civilians, and the growth of government power. And when you look at the theaters of war, it's going to break down on land, sea, and air. We have big dreadnoughts, all right? So on sea, and you have Unterseebooten, you have the submarines. And so that technology all plays a part here and has an impact. And then war on land. I mean, we always think of the Western Front. And I don't know if you will read the book All Quiet on the Western Front. I remember when I was a senior in high school, we read All Quiet on the Western Front, read it a number of times. I also read it in German. And the follow-up Drei Kameraden in German as well. And so we've got the fronts, but there's also some other technology that goes with the fronts, and that is those big guns, those how the machine is changes, tanks, gas, all that stuff goes in there. And then the war on air, of course, we are using airplanes, and they have a purpose. But then we also have these big Zeppelins as well, and they have a purpose in fighting this war. And so ultimately, you know, we might look at that area and see, okay, did that have, what kind of role did it have on the outcome? Then you got the role of civilians, and this is, you know, impact of fighting on civilians. Again, they could be the targets. The genocide fits in there, impact of economic warfare on civilians. And so civilians are going to be brought into the war factories. And in some countries, they might actually conscript people to be a part of that. And women part of the war effort. So we want to highlight that element as well with what women are doing. And then the growth of government power as well here. Government is going to grow. It's going to get big. And it's all about controlling human resources, you know, how we should be used. And that includes also the use of minorities as well in there. War production, making sure that steel is getting in the right place, making sure the food is getting to the soldiers on the front, making sure that we're not making toasters, but we are making armaments, stuff like that. Controlling the morale, that's the propaganda piece, and controlling the economy, making sure that the economy is moving in that direction. All right, so that's all that you got to take into consideration. That's a lot of stuff. You know me, I like to throw a lot in there. And if we look in that little red box, this is what we should take in, should be our guide. Information for each of the key concepts may include, again, the people, the events, the places, terms, the who, what, where, all that stuff. You want to have specifics, so depth of understanding is key here. We want some details. So if we're going to say there were a number of fronts, what kind of fronts are they? If you're going to say there are a number of plans, give me a name of a plan. If we're going to say there are some big old guns, maybe give me a name of a gun, something like that. All right. And lastly, you want to respond somewhere on there. Ooh, we need to know that big HQ, the big historical question. In what ways can World War I be considered a total war? Geography, all right? One thing, geography should also be in this criteria as well, okay? We say it's a world war. Really, is it a world war? All right, so think about that geographically as well. This is a summative, 15 points. So here we go. If you've been blowing off the formative assessments, here's your summative assessment. Okay, and you can see the criteria for it. If you want an A, you need to go to that next level. All right, and you see what that can be. All right, an iMovie, Adobe Spark Video. I need to hear your voice. Bottom line.
Mr. Newcomb, I have a question.
Yo.
For me, Google Slides is easier to use. Could I do a screen recording so you can just hear my voice? Would that be considered in the A range?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything that I can hear your voice, absolutely.
All right.
Yep. So yes, Google Slides, PowerPoint, all those have the ability where you can add your voice into it. All right, so I want to hear that piece there. And then the B range, you know, if you just want to create a presentation, you know, you're not actually going to present in class, go for it. If you want to do some type of graphic organizer, a concept map, you know, do it on paper and then take a picture of it and submit it. You can do that. There are some apps out there as well for concept maps you can use. So this will be what are the various elements that can go into your summative grade. Okay. All right. So any other questions related to this particular assignment? If I neglected to tell you when it's due, it is due Thursday. So we're going to have a few days to work on it. And you know, each day I will poach a little bit of the class time before I cut you loose to work on it. If you are working with a person, you want to make sure that everyone gets credit for it. So you and your historical buddy gets credit for it. And if they're in different classes, it's always, or anything, it's always the best to both submit the finished product. All right, so with that, if you don't have any questions, you can exit and have a wonderful day. I will keep this meeting open just in case you do have questions.